that's very, very dangerous.
Get these spidey sense, you know, I was like, oh, something's off.
And I'm just like, man, I'm waiting to hear something, you know.
Get the crowd warmed up. Is Mr. Yahola Tiger.
What's going on, guys? And welcome to a live edition of the Warcry Podcast. I'm your host, Yahola Tiger, and on this Friday occasion, we just had 2 episodes drop for the members on Patreon and YouTube. Some heat, guys. I'm going to give you a little bit of a preview of both of them, but it's some heat. The Hyena Cryptids of Oklahoma. When I was trying to decipher how to tell these stories that came to me kind of in run-on sentences and trying to, sometimes you don't read them until you actually read them. And I was going through it. This is weeks back. And one thing about the Hyena Cryptids here in Oklahoma is I'm starting to kind of see that they are maybe in a specific location. So in the episode, there is a specific location, kind of where my grandpa or my papa on my mom's side, where he is, where he's from. And so I don't want to give it away because the location, because it's members only right now. But one thing about this location is that there is like a small hill / mountain between 2 of these small towns. And I'll give you the one of them. It's Warner, Oklahoma. And they were talking about that this old man back in the day was seeing these things. And I'm like, man, because then my papa tells me a story about seeing this hyena type creature that is basically roaming, I guess, northeast Oklahoma. One of the sightings that I'll tell you is out of Fairfax, Oklahoma, and it ran out in front of them. And one of the key kind of descriptions that you see with this cryptid is that they all are like mangy, but like they look like they have like not very much hair. And so that's a kind of a cool detail that is shared throughout all of the encounters that were sent to me about these hyena creatures. Now, I don't really in the episode tell you what I think it is. And I think I may leave it for another edition. Let's see here real quick in the chat. We got a few people here. Let's see. The Therians. Hey, how's it going? Nice of you to join me tonight. We have Mr. Williams in here. Thank you for showing up. How's it going? Dang, Blazer Man. I like that name. Blazer Man. Blazer Man's in the building. But what do I think that these hyena cryptids are? And I think one thing that I have a hard time describing and in full detail of like what was described to me by my papa. Because I don't know why my mind goes to like a giraffe, but it does. And it's not a giraffe. It's like, and I showed him multiple pictures and all this stuff, and he just was like, nope, it's not a dog man. It is not a what was it, like the different types of dog man. So like you have, like they even said that there's a hyena version of dog man, and I showed him every version that was in all these different, I guess these drawn artists. And so I don't know what it is. I think my mom was telling me back in the day, probably 10, 15 years ago, there was a guy in Muskogee County, Oklahoma, and he was doing some different, I don't know if it was like breeding of Malamutes and wolves. And we actually saw one on our property, but this guy released them like 25, 30 miles away. So the home territory roaming is something to be looking at on those things. But Mr. Williams said, I'm good. And he said I appreciate the subbing to me. I appreciate that. So that's the first episode that dropped today for YouTube members only, and it'll be available to the podcast as a whole on Monday at midnight. I like dropping on midnight. I don't know why. It's just something adds a little extra layer to what's going on, the creepiness. But so the second episode, and this is the one I for maybe a year, I have kind of teased y'all on this podcast about this Tulsa Skinwalker. And I've been kind of flirting with that a while. And I definitely told the entire story on the podcast. And that dropped today as well. And it is on the members only. The links are in the description, so if you want to join as a member, you hit that link, follow the prompts, go through. You get either the $1.99, that's fine. Doesn't matter to me as long as you get to see it. But it's also on Patreon too as well. And one thing about this gentleman, who I would say is I want to say alleged, and that's why I put alleged, is because growing up, you always see these people who are doing weird things. And you always want to say, oh, he's practicing medicine. We know he's doing medicine. We know he's doing something. He knows things. And you say statements like that growing up. And this guy who was my coworker and then ended up being one of my staff members, he definitely knew things. For those of you guys who have not heard the prior episodes, but my dog is in the background chewing on his bone. Big old baby. His name is Tato, short for potato. I had a lot of weird things happening when I was director of a government facility. And it's not anything crazy. It's just I don't want to give any specifics. I don't want y'all running up there, getting possessed. No, but one thing that he was doing is putting symbols all over the facility. And one thing that I always thought was odd is that how openly blatant he is about it. He'd tell us flat out. And so one thing that I always thought that was kind of interesting is that he was a Freemason. He was in one of the lower levels trying to get in with the Freemasons in that area. And if you haven't heard Dead Man's Bed, episode 93, I have my first encounter with someone who tries to invite me. They try to invite me into the Masons, try to get me to join. And that was and I think he was, now, I think he was the devil, and I think that it was maybe someone possessed. I don't know, but it's definitely something to think about, and it's something I've thought about for quite a while. Let's see here. Mr. Lobo, how's it going, man? I hope you're doing all right tonight. Let's see here. If you don't mind asking me, you can call me. Sounds good. I'll call you Jaden. And Mr. Cheese, I like that name. Remind me of that government cheese. Remind me of that American cheese, putting it on the nice piece of, I don't know if y'all like wheat bread or white bread. I like white bread. A little mayo on there. Maybe a couple slices of ham. Putting that American cheese down. That yellow cheese. In that good way. Man, I'm getting hungry. But anyway, that's my big back, y'all. I'll be big back. Now, I saw something on TikTok. And this is nasty work. And I'm going to say this. And this is a sidebar from what we're going to talk about. But this nasty work to put, what is it? Cinnamon Toast Crunch dust. So like just powdering up Cinnamon Toast Crunch into like the smallest, finest powder, and then sprinkling it on bacon. That's some nasty work. Whoever thought of that, my inner big back and my outer back big back, man, we was wanting that. I was like, man, that looks good. Anyways, but no, this guy who I worked with, it was a character. Some details I left out on the episode that I was going to share here was that he would be with. He was in charge of summer camp, and he would be with with these kids during the summer camp, and he had an assistant who would help him. I guess a camp counselor, as we call it. And I always, every time that he would say something about me or start something or talk about the weird stuff, it was like I always walked by. It was like something always, like, I don't know if it was just fate or if it was a coincidence, but every time he'd start talking about weird stuff, symbols and just weird stuff. Like, I don't really know how to even say it, but I would always hear it, and I would hear kind of a plan that he would try to devise to kind of create like breaking of the ranks and type of things. And another thing too that like he would always do is he would always play Dungeons and Dragons with these kids. Well, then the kids started kind of getting kids get a mind of their own, and they started calling this demon or whatever this was that was haunting our facility. They called him the Poop Man. Now, you want to talk about diabolical, Lobo? That's diabolical. Poop Man? I'm thinking these kids is dropping crazy deuces and they just like stinking the place up, and they're like, man, this is like Poop Man. Like, that's what I'm thinking in my head before I hear what these kids are talking about. And no, come to find out, he had conjured something. He had done seances in this building and was feeding whatever was attached to him. And I go into a little bit more detail of the conversation I had with him about, that. But like, that was when I was a supervisor, and like, there's a whole nother part of that where, we had a supervisor that before I got promoted to that position, man, they were going to blows over everything. They were fighting. And one thing that I'll say for people who are kind of, we call them pretendians, they, like, it's not taken well. And I didn't think my former supervisor was a pretendian. I think he was Indian, but he just didn't have the tribal recognized card. He just didn't ever file for it, didn't ever like apply for it. But he had his Indian card. Well, he had said he was Cherokee, and it's a big no-no for a lot of people to say you're Cherokee and you don't have a Cherokee card. And so when my former supervisor was like, man, yeah, I'm Cherokee, just great grandmother, this, and this, and we both looked at each other like I'm fine with it. I could verify that his grandmother was in fact Cherokee, but my coworker, can y'all hear my dog in the background? This dude's wilding out right now. But I start talking about spooky stuff. He starts getting scared. No, but I looked at him and I said, and I knew what he was thinking, that it was a big no-no. You don't do that. And so we both left early that day, and he was like, man, I can't believe him claiming. Now, being in mind, my coworker is blonde hair, blue eyes. And I have nothing against people who are that way. If you have a half a drop of blood in you, you're still Indian. Like, that's just what I believe. And, it is what it is when it comes to being native. You got to carry it somehow, and it's in you, and it's verified. You got ancestors. But yeah, he was not happy. Let's see here. Pyromedic says, feeding it what? See, that's the point. That's the part that I never really asked him, was that it's almost like he fed off the passive aggressive energy, I guess you could say. There was a lot of passive aggressiveness. I'm a very direct person. I'm gonna just it is what it is. We just gonna say what it is. And it was a lot of like sneaky energy going on, and I think it was kind of ramping up until he actually got he left, and it was getting worse. But and it was a lot of different factors, and I go into if you guys listen to the episode, like I said, right now it's the Tulsa Skinwalker episode is not ever gonna. It's gonna be a members only for a while. Like it's gonna be a members only for quite a while. Like it's not gonna be something that everyone can see. It's gonna stay behind a paywall for a long time. Um, Lobo says stolen valor type shit. Yes, bro. It'd be like that, man. Like I'll tell you a crazy story. I was at a bar when I was in my early 20s, and one of the guys said, "Man, you Indian?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm Indian." He's like, "All right, let me see your card." Like, dude made me pull my cards out. He's like an old head, he's like mid-50s. He said, "You ain't gonna be claiming Indian." I could tell he was a jail dude too. Like he was just jailed out, but I had to pull my cards out, man. His whole home, all the I don't know what tribe they were part of. I said, "Here my card," and he's like, looked it over, and he's like, "Okay, you're good with me." I'm like, "Dang!" I was like, "Guys, out here got to prove I'm Indian to some random dude who's like, oh, you Mexican or you Indian?" I'm like, I'm Indian, and it's not Indian, it's NDN too. For those, that's some slang out there for you, but. Pyromedic says many weren't willing to go and sign up after they were removed from our homeland. The last time that they did, yeah, that's a lot of it too. Dude had his grandmother, and he had his whole ancestry. Like I wasn't trying to pull his card or anything. I just was like, no, he just wanted to prove it to me, I guess, because for whatever reason. But it is what it is. My dog is so distracting right now. He's in there yelping, but that's one thing too. Yeah, it is like stolen. I never thought of it like that, but it is taken like that. But he got real mad about that, and so that's when the shape shifting skinwalker thing started happening to my supervisor. And one thing about skinwalkers is it's not a cryptid. I want to get that out. It's not a cryptid. It is someone who knows them old ways, and sometimes they use them for bad. Um, but once that was kind of established, and then they started really butting heads on religion. Um, it was just they were trying to get a riled up, effect. He was just trying to get him irritated, and I mean it worked. I ain't gonna lie, it did work because he ended up leaving a couple months later. But man, it was like every day it was like blows. Like they were just talking about something, just getting mad at each other. And then his wife started seeing things, and I mentioned on a previous live stream that like she was seeing a dog-headed person or wolf-headed person, and that's kind of what she's seeing. But there's a lot of details in that episode that I'm not going to share because people still around. Um, I got kids. I'm not saying I'm scared. Oh, don't get me, but I'm just sometimes you got to leave that real stuff alone. And there's a lot of details about his childhood that I go into about him thinking he was possessed as a youngster. And there's just a lot to this guy. He was in a metal band. Um, he was always, like I said, he was passive aggressive to me, but he was always a good dude. But that's the Tulsa Skinwalker episode that I'm kind of previewing. If for those of you guys jumping in the chat, um, it's one of those episodes that I was getting kind of spooked out in the middle of the day, kind of episodes, because it happened to me. It's not like I'm getting this secondhand, like I'm getting the Skinwalker story secondhand, but I'm having to live through, shadows in the building that I'm working at, doors closing, lights turning on, just whole lot of creepy stuff. It just was it was a lot. And let's see, Parmex said, "I know a few darker than me that don't have cards." Yeah, it'd be like that. That's why I'm not really into the card pulling, but they do be doing that sometimes. I mean, not everybody, but sometimes. But so go check those out. I believe the link is in the description. You want to become a member. Eventually, when we get our community built up over there, we'll do, member only lives, and we'll do episodes and things like that, members only, and man, it's gonna be because there's a lot of stuff that behind the scenes that I have to hold back for public like this. And I'll have some other guests on when we start going members only lives because there was a few stories that Rod or Barry couldn't really tell because it's kind of it gets out there, and plus non-natives, yeah, it's just they have a hard time understanding what we're saying a lot of times about things because it's just maybe it's just the way that we just don't know how to describe it in English, and that's kind of could be a thing, but reminding me of this too. So there's a new book out, and this has got my mind thinking a lot about vampires. And this is a vampire book that just came out, and it's called Buffalo Hunter Hunter, and I believe it's by Stephen Graham. He has done what is it? He's done so many books. I've read a few. I've read one, and I'm halfway through another. But he has done multiple books. Go look him up. But Buffalo Hunter Hunter is the name, and the way that book is written reminds me of talking to somebody who it's like English is their second language, and that's what it reminds me of. Because there's some old heads back in the day who talk like that in that way, and they say in that way, or like that, or like they'll say, hey, like one of the descriptions is he called them longhorns or black horns. They do this like that, and he shows them, but then it's like that. It's just little nuances of the way he writes that book. He's an Indian dude too, so if you want to support native authors, he's one. But it's about a Blackfoot vampire, Blackfoot Indian vampire, and he comes across this vampire while trying to cover up and trying to help his tribe because they were going through some kind of mistaken identity crisis, and it was causing the cavalry to attack them. And the way that the book describes the vampire calls them four-leggeds, and that got me thinking. Down in Florida, and especially down in the Amazon, they have man, these dogs are killing me today. I don't know if y'all can hear them, but they would talk about these cat people, and I think some tribes would call them like the Black Panther people, where they were like, or underwater panthers. And I'm almost wondering too if we called them cat people, but they were really vampires. That's something I was thinking about when I'm when I'm reading this book. Is cat people could be vampires because it is described as four-legged. Because the way he describes, he says basically when he feeds on four-legged in this book, he feels more four-legged. But then when he feeds on humans, he feels more two-legged. And I'm wondering, and I love the way that's described because I never thought about it. Because down in Florida, like I said, they had the cat people, and that's what they called this vampire. These natives out here on this reservation back in the 1912, 1900s, 1912, basically, is when this book takes place, and it's an old Western book. But let me know what y'all think about that. That might be interesting to kind of maybe go down a rabbit hole when it comes to a topic. Because I talked about Black Panthers, but I never talked about underwater panthers, and that might be what they are, vampires. That's an old way of trying to describe those things. Could be. I mean, could be a lot of things though. The next kind of thing I've been, thinking about and talking about, and this I may make this into a full episode, but I went down a deep rabbit hole when it comes to indigo children. If you never heard of indigo children, it's people that were born in the late 70s to the late 90s. And one thing about these indigo children is that they have specific marks on their body. And so, like, for instance, one of them is on their left forearm. They'll have a freckle. Another one is if they have freckles on the back of their forearm, and then one on the right. And there's different key markers of these indigo children. Now, if it's not on the left forearm, then it's not an indigo child. It's a different level of whatever this spiritual thing is. And I found it so fascinating because I do have a left freckle. I could show you. I could try to show you. But anyways, I can't move my arm like that. But I do have a left freckle. And then when they were describing these children, is kind of like in a spiritual way, like you know when someone's lying to you is one of them, a marker. Which people be lying, I be seeing it. Another marker is that we fight battles. I believe one of the markers is that we fight battles that we maybe cannot win, and we don't like old systems. And like that is literally, I've died on some hills that I probably shouldn't have died on. And I started looking into it. I'm going to do more research, but I just found it very fascinating. So if you're born, I think late 70s, early 80s to the late 90s, look at your left forearm, and if you have a freckle, then you may be an indigo child. But let me know in the comments or in the chat if you're born in that time frame and you have a freckle on your left forearm, inside of your left forearm. Another topic, and we're getting through these quick. Not going to go very long. Just want something light. It's Friday night. I got a lot of distractions in the room right here. One thing about this, I left my dog Tato out last night, and I had to use the bathroom like 6:45 this morning. And I look at, and this dude is pacing. Like he's literally just walking back and forth. He's a Great Pyrenees mix, so I guess that's what they do. Just be walking back and forth, dude. Paul's muddy as all get out. But the next topic that I want to talk about, and like I said, was real brief, guys. Just something light, just trying to, get the vibes out there, see how everybody's doing tonight, talk about the episodes, but is the GATE program, the Gifted and Talented program. My wife was invited to that, and she doesn't really remember much about it. And I'm starting to look at all these different accounts of people being like, I really don't remember what I was doing there. I just remember getting signed up and taking these weird tests, and then come to find out that basically they're trying to find, like, what do they call those? Psychic children. They're trying to find psychic children in that class. Now, I don't know if you guys got any kids now that are in that type of program. I don't even know if they even still have it. I think it was like a 90s to early 2000s thing, because I haven't heard anything about it since. It's all older people talking about it. I guess I'm old now, but that's very fascinating to me too, because it's like it gets into basically kids being able to see in the future, remote view. It gets into remote viewing, and eventually I'll talk about that, because there's on an episode topic, and which reminds me, on my channel, go to the post tab and vote what you want for episode 96. We're getting close to 100. 100 is coming, and I'm still trying to debate on what I want to do for number 100. I kind of want to just reach out to some people, have them tell stories, talk, and just have like a big mashup of just people that's been on the podcast, maybe new people. But I kind of want to. I'm kind of leaning towards that, but I'm also kind of leaning just to talk about all 100 episodes and just give behind the scenes. I don't know, or backstories on a lot of stuff. I don't know. But on the channel, hit the post tab. You can do it right now while you're listening. Hit the post tabs and go and vote for what you want number 96 to be, episode 96. Go hit that. And then also too, there are links to the Patreon and the YouTube in there as well. But the GATE program is very interesting, because now they're coming to find out, it's kind of tied to this in some sort of fashion, and I don't know how to be politically correct, but kids that are nonverbal, kind of Down syndrome. I apologize if anybody has any kids out there who are affected by this. I don't know. I'm not politically correct in that fashion to know how to call these kids. But the kids that are nonverbal, who have a lot of limited mobility, there has been a documentary come out, and also like some research come out, that those kids are actually telepathic, and they have abilities. It's just their body is limiting them, and it's right now it's going to be peer reviewed. I think is what last thing I saw, but it's in documentary. That would open up a whole crazy part of genetics, and just really the anatomy, and like maybe even the soul, because like for a long time people thought that these people who are nonverbal, not had limited mobility, couldn't do anything. They thought they were talking to them slow, and even I had some kids during my YMCA days, these different recreation programs that I've created and been a part of, is you kind of treat them like that. And I wasn't aware that they could, they were they could telepathic to each other. So like they would be in the same room talking to each other, but they're maybe across the way. And that is so fascinating to me, because if that's true, it changes a lot of stuff about how we view special education. And it's very interesting to know that that's now out. It's like part of the remote viewing thing. And I just think that people are mad about this Department of Education, but man, I'm not seeing no benefit of that. As someone who has seen the school systems, and I'm gonna have some kids, I'm sure y'all can say the same thing with y'all's kids. But that none of that funding goes to us here on the ground level. It's all NGOs and nonprofits, and I've seen it firsthand of what that does. And you're kind of limiting the kids, and that's, I think, part of it. It doesn't affect IEP. That's going to be going to Health and Human Services, is what I last read. So it may change the game on that, especially if Health and Human Services are in on this study. I mean, I don't know, but a lot of weird stuff. Not weird. A lot of interesting things coming out. They just found that a pyramid. They just did some tests, like some ground penetrating radars. That's like high tech, never before done, on some pyramids, and they found out there's like whole chambers and possibly a whole power grid, like power coils that will power, and that could be what it could be how things were done back in the Egyptians' days. So 2025 is no joke, y'all. It is about to be popping. They talking about World War III popping off because we're bombing Yemen. It's just nasty, man. It's just diabolical work, in the words of Mr. Lobo. But let me know what you guys think about the episodes that just came out. Hyena Cryptids of Oklahoma is coming out Monday at midnight, so it'll be Sunday night at midnight is, I guess, how you say it in some sort of fashion. And then Tulsa Skinwalkers will never see the light of day unless you get a membership for Patreon or YouTube membership, because it's just got a lot of information that I'm giving out, locations. I'm giving out, all these different places that people around here don't want their privacy invaded, especially if people start snooping around over where in some of these parks in Midtown, which I gave away one right there. But if anyone doesn't have any other comments or questions or any topics, I'm going to end this thing at 40 minutes. So you got 5 minutes. Oh no, my oldest. But I guess with that being said, guys, dad duty calls at 9:00 at night. But you guys can catch me on TikTok, Warcry Pod, X, Warcry Pod. My child is distracting me. I'm sorry, guys. Warcry Pod on X and TikTok. Real Warcry Pod on real Warcry Pod. Gmail, send me stories. I appreciate all you guys, and I'll catch you on the next one.